My name is Karen A. here at Jerusalem. This is the Afro-Euro Reco12 podcast. We are a family of recovery resources for addicts suffering from all addictions, all afflictions. You could check us out at Reco12.com, where you'll find the Noodle Out with Nikki podcast, the Big Book Roundtable with Justin and Nikki, and recordings from sexaholics, Al-Anons, alcoholics, narcotics, anonymous fellows, workaholics, anorexics, bulimics, gamblers, adult children, sloths. Oh, and you could add anything else to the list if you like. We really try and bring forward on this podcast addicts suffering from different addictions, different afflictions, that just in case you are suffering or God forbid dying in that disease, there's someone whose experience, strength, and hope can help launch you into a path of recovery and service to humanity and, of course, your fellows. While we keep a nice intimate meeting here online, about 350 people listen to this podcast every week. I hope that answers your question. The format of this meeting is that our speaker shares their recovery journey in whatever fellowship they're in, their experience, strength, and hope. Nira, who is with us here today, will have 30 minutes to share her story about how she got out of the need for perfectionism and started living in the spirit life. And she'll tell you her exact topic in a second. At the end of Nira's 30 minutes or throughout, she'll go straight, but you can type your questions in the chat and she'll look at them when she's done and answer them. Or you could go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your questions live so that you could benefit from Nira's recovery journey. You can go ahead and ask her questions and she'll answer them. We'll conclude this podcast with a prayer. Nira will pray us out on the hour, which if you need to end at 11, that is just fine, which means 9 a.m. UK time. Or if you want to go a few minutes late since we started late, that is fine too. If you'd like to contribute to Seventh Tradition, there are technical costs to maintaining the website and the speaker casts and all of that. You can go to reco12.com/support, and any contribution is greatly appreciated. Without further ado, Nira, I welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hi, I'm Nira. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my story. I'm Nira. I belong here, and I'm going to take you through the journey by reading first, because every time I try to do it free of reading, I missed out big chunks. So, and then after that, I'm very happy to take any questions and add a few more things to it. So I want to share the journey of being very close to God as a child, then distancing myself from Him made me lose my way. And then how love brought me close to Him again and to serve His children through my recovery, all in God's timing. This is the only way my addiction life makes sense to me and serve a purpose. So here I go. I was born and raised in Asia till I was 13. And physical abuse, such as hitting, was normalized in the culture at the time. And I was a daughter to a 20-year-old woman who was in a very physically abusive marriage. And abandonment and rejection wounds came with that package for me as a child. And on top of it, I had undiagnosed dyslexia, autism, and ADHD. I always struggled with human connections, to make any friends or anything like that. And always was labeled as a naughty, angry child. But I was far from that. But that's my childhood. So God was my companion, my escape. And I was very religious. I was a Catholic and I talked to Him a lot. But I don't remember hearing Him. I've been thinking about that a lot. I really definitely don't remember hearing Him. So, and then I was a good teenager, passed all my exams well, despite only learning English at the age of 13. And remember that I was very dyslexic, And I really believe these were the gifts I was given by being close to God as a child. And I always knew deep down I was protected. Then I went to uni. This is when everything started to change. So I was 19 and I fell pregnant by sleeping with a guy on the first date who would become my ex husband for 11 years after that. I decided to have an abortion. And this decision cost me 3 suicide attempts at my life at the age of 19. And I stopped having faith in religion anymore because in Catholicism, an abortion was a grave sin. And then this did not help me not wanting to be here. So I threw God out of my life as well as religion. And I took life onto my own hands and will. And I blamed and shamed my ex husband for all the pain I was going through and blamed everyone and everything. I was plagued with perfectionism and nothing was ever good enough. So I made sure we both became educated because we were children, when we got married. And we bought our first house at the age of 24. So the checklist that was supposed to make me happy, I had everything by the age of 24, but I was very miserable and lost than ever in my life. This was very confusing because that's what everyone told me. The checklist was supposed to make me happy. And then 7 years of marriage later, I decided maybe I should have a baby. That's going to make me happy. Maybe that's the missing piece. So we planned and we had a baby. It did stop my suicidal thoughts for 11 years. So that drug was powerful more than all the other drugs. And at 30, finally, I decided to liberate my ex-husband from the mental prison that I put him in and asked for a divorce. It only took him 6 months to realize this is the best thing that could ever happen to him. So we dissolved our marriage amicably. Then really started the 8 year spree of my addictions to sex, love, and synthetic CBD. One relationship after another happened. Most of these relationships were kept open so I can carry out acting without feeling too guilty. I became a very angry, bitter person. I knew something was deeply wrong with me. I already had a sense of this from my early 20s when I cut God out of my life. I already done about 8 years worth of therapy, medications, plant medicines, lots of spiritual retreats to try to get better. Tried to have a connection with God, but nothing worked permanently. Now I realize it's because these were the easiest of the ways I was trying. And also, key thing, I wasn't ready to see my character defects. Things only progressively got worse. Like the big book says, most of us get to insanity or death. Then came March 2025, the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle of my life, the miracle, the 12 steps of recovery. I was suicidal again. It was staring right at my face. Everything outside of me was falling apart by this time, and everything inside of me felt completely empty. And I really did not see a point of life. And I was crippled with anxiety and clinical depression. I was a shell of a person. When I reached step 4 inventory, the mirror of all the ugly truths about me, my shadows were all on pen and paper, staring right at me. There was no escape then. And then I started to hear God for the very first time, staring at all my character defects. That's when I made that connection. And I was hearing him and having conversations with him. I keep saying him, but it's higher power. It doesn't have a him or a her or whatever, but I was hearing that voice very, very loud and clear, like I would be with a loved one. Then came the opportunity to make amends with my biological dad. All of this was planned by the higher power, and went to Sri Lanka in March while I was doing my steps. And then I met my two stepsisters, and this was all after about good 20 years of not having any contact with them at all. And then I hear their story of them coming into their connection with God in their own accord. Everything that I just needed to hear, that's what I needed to for the rest of my life, really. So I took every opportunity I was given to make amends as a blessing. I never stopped to question my emotions, because I was following instructions from God directly. I was told at step 5, I need to sponsor, and I did. And I remember asking my grand sponsee, Nikki, like, do you think I'm ready? Does people actually start sponsoring at step 5? And she's like, it doesn't matter. You start when you start and you keep serving. And that's what I did. So the instructions were so clear from my high power. I did everything that was asked of me. There was no resistance from me at all. I completely have surrendered. And the pain felt excruciating at times, but that only made my faith in the higher power more stronger and more conversations I was having with God. I desperately didn't want to live anymore, so I didn't see any other choice for me. So letting go felt like the easier thing to do rather than trying to hold on, because for so long it felt like I tried to hold on and it just destroyed me. So now I have a journal dedicated to my two-way prayers, because I wanted to write down these conversations I was having, because at first I thought I was going crazy. And then I realized, no, this is actually a miracle and I need to journal it. So I could always go back to the questions I've asked to revisit the answers to see how that's doing in my life right now. So following the 12 steps, the design for living, I learned to ask the right questions, because asking the right questions from the higher power is really important. And they are always selfless questions, like how to serve, how to improve, what exact character defect I should be working on one at a time. So not like, can I get a supercar or £1 million? Those things don't work. And then I got answers even quicker than I can write them. My recovery took a life of its own. Every time I took someone through the steps came to life and embedded deeply in my subconscious. And this fire in my belly for wanting to do more of that started. All the promises started to unravel with every surrender, But I never did any of these things expecting anything back in return. I just wanted peace in the moment, courage to deal with the pain moment by moment. But then promises definitely come true. But we shouldn't ever do this work expecting anything, expecting any promise to come true. But they do. And finally, I was at peace and joy being alone. I never, till this point, ever been alone in my life. There's always a partner, a husband, or a parent, or a child in my life. Whereas finally, I was completely on my own, and I was at peace with it. In fact, I was joyous. So my relationships with everyone around me became very harmonious. To get current, my mom actually is my best friend today, because she's the only one who's been there from day one. And we've had a very tricky relationships during my lifetime, but she's the one that I can talk to, and certain things. I mean, I think she's the one who, with or without knowing, caused me the most harm. But now the fact that we can sit and talk about it, in fact, take it to a whole nother level where we as two grown women now, we try to give our son a better future, try to minimize all the abuse she went through, the abuse I went through. It doesn't need to carry on. I mean, obviously my son went through a certain amount of abuse through my addiction, but we try to minimize the damage together now. All the generations coming together. Even my dad, who was so abusive to my mom, and my stepsisters, they all
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Reco12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Are part of this journey. And I have an amazing relationship with my biological dad now, which is the most beautiful thing as well, which I thought I'll never forgive him, but I did. And whatever he did to my stepsisters to bring them up the way he did, I see it as amendments to me. And the fact that I see now he's also close to God and how his life has changed, and knowing that he had really bad autism, undiagnosed autism. And in Sri Lanka, that's one of the reasons why he was very abusive, because he didn't know how to deal with any of his emotions. That's not an excuse, but I understand things in a much deeper way now. So now I work full time for the NHS, and my son spends a lot of time with me, but I've decided he's better off with his dad because he provides a better routine. But me and my ex-husband has a great amicable relationship where we co-parent our child together. So there's no restricted times, we are very much a functional family as far as we can be. And I've lost 10 kilos since April. So again, it wasn't like I was trying to, but I was treating the tempo that God has given me with good food and with fitness. And so the weight sort of fell off me because that's what God's power is. When you touch God, it's not just one part of your life that gets corrected. It's actually the whole bigger picture of it. So it's better to meet God alone than with someone who don't understand. So I'm at peace with it, and a lot of people won't understand it. A lot of people will be like, have religious trauma and a whole lot of stuff. But God is none of that. God is a connection that you can really have, like with a loved one. It's not something that is up there that you cannot reach. And the more patient I am and tolerant with myself, the more I am patient and tolerant with everybody else. This is where, I have let go of my perfectionism. And God constantly reminds me that this is a really big character defect that I have to work on a daily basis. And then I ask the question, why did I have this journey? I was a good child. I was faithful. Why did I have to go through all this? And then the answer from the higher power to that is that if I didn't experience the things I experienced and tasted death the way I did and still do, I wouldn't be able to show strength and hope to his children that I am meant to be a service for. So I have to be friends with my shadow parts, even the suicidal parts of me, that keeps me grounded and makes me work even harder to be in service. That's just my path. That is just my purpose. That's what I'm born to do. And I don't get a day off. And I get sobriety one day at a time. That's all I get. So I have to work one day at a time. And I specifically ask questions about the suicidal part of me. And my higher power says it keeps me away from wanting human-willed things and keep me on my course. So now I look at people and I do really see the goddesses and the goddess that they are They're not their mistakes. They are pure. They just have to see it that way. And the love I feel from God is so deep and kind. Anything another human being ever have to offer feels quite disappointing compared to it. So I know no human being could have filled that God-shaped hole in me. And all the relationships I have around me make me more in service. And doing joyful things are really important in my life, God says, because I used to be too much of a serious person. But whereas now I have like a gaming night on Friday, a Zumba night on Monday, I even attend church now. My friends attend that church and we sing to God. But Catholic church still doesn't work for me, so I don't go. My son loves going to church with me. There's a youth group there. He has made many friends. And my son chooses to have a relationship with God, but no religion is forced upon him. So that's the reading part of it. And I don't know how I'm doing with time. I think it's got about 1 minute till 8:30.
No, you're good. You could keep going. Take as long as you need. We're flexible here.
Okay, sure. I'll go for a few more minutes. So simply recovery, what it looks like to me currently is me sitting with every single character defect and having a hard look at it and being forgiving towards me that I didn't know it. That's why I did the things I did. I don't know what I know now then, And every time I forgive a part of me, it helps me to surrender that part. And every time I surrender that part, I build trust with myself. And every time I build trust with myself, I do love myself that much more. And ultimately, that's what recovery is all about. Forgiving ourselves, loving ourselves, trusting ourselves again, so we can do the right thing even when no one's looking. And then the higher power really gives us the instructions on how to do it. We just have to do it. It's simple, but it's extremely difficult because of the actual pain. For me, I get physical pain with it, like my chest hurts, like I'm about to have a mini heart attack. But those things don't fear me anymore. When it comes now, they're like waves. I let it come. I don't run with shame and guilt and a story behind it. It is just pain. It comes, it rises, and then it falls. It's only if I run with it, oh, why did I do this? Why did I do that? Make a story that it stays until I stop doing it. So even my suicidal thoughts, they come. When they come, I'm not afraid of them anymore, only because I know through experience now, they only come. That's my liar. And they go. I don't have to put meaning to it. I just continue to do my work day in, day out. I'll leave it there, but I'm very happy to take any questions.
Wow, Nira, that was so packed and honest, and I really want to thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's amazing what you said about, working your program, staying religious despite, some, trauma and experiences around religion, being alive when wanting to die, losing 10 kilo, the program says that once we straighten out spiritually, we straighten out physically and mentally. Our big book says that. You see a clear specimen of that on the screen. So I want to thank you. I'm sure everyone has some questions here, whether it's about your rock bottom, when you decided you were really going to let a higher power help you, when you realized your way was not the way for you anymore. Maybe people have questions about how you work with others, how you be of service in your life. Perhaps people have questions about how you sponsor. Or maybe they've got questions about your own program, how you work your steps 10 and 11 daily. I'd like to open up the floor and get some questions from everyone, please. Nira, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what is your step 10 and 11 daily practice?
Hey Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Reco12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Reco12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
So how my step 10 and 11 daily practice looks like is I use the AA toolkit journaling. So I go through every resentment I had during the day, and I go through checking with myself as to is there anything that I haven't spoken to anybody about that I should be speaking to? And also, how can I, what could I have done on that day? That's my nightly inventory that I could improve for the next day, you know? And also just checking, have I been selfish, and have I shown love to people? It's mainly patience and tolerance that normally come up quite often, that is something that I have to work moment by moment. And service, do I do enough service? I mean, I have 6 sponsees that I'm sponsoring right now. I've taken 12 steps through, people through steps, 12 people through steps. And I attend a lot of meetings. So I constantly review what more I can do. And there's always more, and I write them down so I can review them the next day. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you share with us what it is that you get out of sponsorship? The big book says that this is the bright spot of our lives. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So the beauty of sponsoring somebody is, first of all, when you are giving away what you have given to you freely, the knowledge, it takes a whole nother form of its life. When you start reading and helping another, there are messages that's coming through that you never saw when you were doing your steps. I'm like, oh, that part I didn't see, so the book actually comes to life. But most of all, it's the connection that you're making. When you see someone starts off in their active addiction, they're at their rock bottom, they're in a lot of pain. And then when you see when they're doing one step at a time, you can see it in their face. They're smiling more, they're sleeping more. And even the way they're thinking is suddenly changing. And when they get light bulb moments, aha moments, and then finally when they do their 4th step inventory, they see, oh my God, literally like see it on paper, does something. And then how they transform their life. I mean, one of my sponsees have his own 2 sponsees now. And, how their families are saved from the disease, how their kids have been saved from the disease. And then we carry on helping each other, both ways. I have conversations with my sponsees who finish doing their steps, how difficulties in our life, we share them, we've become friends, much deeper friends. And, we help each other, like, oh my God, this happened to me, what do I do? And then we ask questions and we help each other. So they become lifelong friends. I still remember my first sponsee session because I was telling Nikki, the steps are not working. Even though God was talking to me and everything, I'm like, I still want to die, Nikki. It's not working. And she goes, you need to sponsor. That's what you need to do. And I still remember that first time I did that sponsorship, I was jumping in high, because my fire that was missing for so long was finally burning. inside me. It's an amazing feeling. It's a bit like explaining after giving birth to a child how it feels. It's an experience that individually everybody got to experience.
I love what you said. I love a few things about what you said, Nira. The first thing, people on the line or people listening to the recording, Nira is really a picture of humility. I'm just going to plug this one because I know in some fellowships, people use sponsorship to power trip or to like boss people around. Love and tolerance is our code. So if you're with someone power tripping, or if you're confused, because like me, in your addiction, you're codependent and people pleasing, and you're not sure, maybe a sponsor is a drill sergeant, maybe they are, maybe the honest truth needs to be a little mean. It actually doesn't. You just need to walk through the steps. You just need to get a sense of your grosser handicaps, face yourself, get rid of what isn't working, connect to God and help others. And that's the formula that does it. It's a lot lighter than a lot of fellowships or a lot of people, make it out to be. So just a word out there, if anybody's kind of vilifying you or getting you to, work yourself over hot coals, it's not necessary. A sponsor is a fellow. You do have to be willing, and we walk away from people who are not from people, from, Nira has a life, I have a life. We don't continue working with people who aren't honest or willing, but if they are, we're there. The other thing I'm hearing humility in is we're fellows. We walk shoulder to shoulder. So yes, I was just saying this to a fellow yesterday. When I'm sponsoring you and you're still drinking or you're still sleeping around, I am ahead of you. I'm not better than you. We're all intelligent agent spearheads of God's everlasting creation. The big book says that. I do, though, have something that you do. No, I'm not perfect and my life isn't peaches and cream. And, I tried getting angry, but I do have a program and I do work at 10, 11, 12. I meditate. I ask God for direction. And I do work with others, and sometimes it's kind of sloppy. But I know somebody who was really rigorous and had big book studies. And last I heard, he was in rehab. So, as long as you keep doing your best with what you got, I didn't what someone just said, but yeah, Nira has a job and, I also have a job and a family and I'm going to grad school. And sometimes it doesn't look pretty. You saw I had technical difficulties this morning, but we just keep going. We keep trying to connect. The other place I heard humility in what Nira said, it's also something that I say to my sponsees. Once you're through the 12 steps, you're my sponsor too, right? It's a two-way street. When I've got what you don't have yet, I take you through. But once you're on the other side, we walk this road, we commence this journey shoulder to shoulder. And our sponsees are our sponsors. Because when we're in a blackout addict mode, we can't see what's in front of us. We're blinded. And they can help us. And the last plug I'm going to make for sponsorship, of course, is that there are miracles. Just like she was saying, she had, won the lottery, jumping up and down kind of thing going on, visual going on there. We see miracles in our lives and in our sponsors' lives. And I don't know if you see this, Nira, but higher power has a wacky way of making them kind of parallel.
Yes.
Like, you just had that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, jump on in. And same with difficulties, like they just are, doing a step and you're like, oh my gosh, I just had that with my daughter too,
Yeah, when I was doing my steps. Do you ever see
that kind of parallel?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, synchronicities, yes, because in May, I went on this retreat thing and I had a horrible time. I lost it all sort of thing emotionally for like a day. And then same thing happened to my sponsor a few months later. So I was able to say, do you remember that trip that I went on? So you having that same moment, but in a different situation, but it's the same thing. And then he was like, oh, yes. And that gives courage and hope that this is a normal process. We're not going to be perfect every day, especially not at the beginning. Even after that, we're never perfect, but at least we don't lose it completely. Did Karen? Oh, there are you. Yeah.
Yeah, I got kicked out of Zoom again. If it happens again, just carry on without me. What else I'm hearing and what you just said about that is, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Great. Is that our past becomes our greatest asset. See, if I'm, having a lot of fears around my kids because of my own dysfunction from my family of origin, that's really helpful when I see my sponsee having so much fear. Because then I could say stuff to her or suggest things. I don't have the monopoly, but I could say to her, are you maybe afraid? Are you maybe resentful because you decided that you need to stop the chain of dysfunction, that you need to be, the revolutionary who stops everything that has gone on for decades in your family? We could help others with our dark past. It becomes our greatest asset. We could help people in our office working these principles in all our affairs. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Nira. How do you bring this recovery out of the rooms? I mean, I have a coworker, whenever she's upset, she's like, oh, can you give me one of your lines, one of your slogans? What are those, 12-step things you say?
I normally say breathe.
You said,
Yeah,
breathe.
People don't realize how powerful breathing is. Yeah, I say it to all my patients as well. It's like breathe, before a sharp scratch comes, So, and that breathing and pausing, for a moment really does bring us back and out of that overwhelmingness feeling. And that is something so easy to do because most of us don't breathe correctly. We just need to breathe through our nose, out through our mouth, and just stay in that quietness. And that really does help to take the next moment on.
Breath work is part of my morning practice. My morning meditation includes breath work. And it's a game changer when I don't do it. You were saying it's such an easy thing to do. And I'm going to contribute to that and say, and how easy it is to forget.
Yeah. Right? It's always the easier, simpler things that we actually don't look at or forget, And because they're easier, simpler things, because you're always looking for something complicated. But it's really, everything is simple.
Well, and the addict, is self will run riot. So when we get crazy, when we get undisciplined, when we get black and white, like you were talking about your retreat, or one day my daughter isn't home on time, even though she's doing okay, the addict is very, undisciplined, dramatic. It's not like, oh, she's not home right now. Like one of my sponsees says, I'm already imagining her like a pregnant teenager, crack addict, with a baby shooting heroin, God forbid, or, I'm already thinking like, we'll have no relationship. It's over. It's all done. That real fatalistic, black and white thinking. It's like, it's so hard. And that's why we reach out to our fellows. Like, can you just pause?
And sometimes when mind goes like that, after all of that story we just made up, what I do, I sit with it. Okay, say that happens. Now what? So what? So what? It's a bit like I've always, tried to be a person where I feel the fear. I let the fear come, but I go and do it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't.
Sometimes that might happen, Sometimes your kid might not flourish.
To be honest, all of these, kids, all of these things we're trying to hold on to are borrowed. They're not ours. They are higher powers at the end of the day. So if that's the plan the higher power have for them, who are we to sit there questioning it? So
and it won't work anyway. It won't work anyway. If I've got a kid who's sleeping in downstairs, what am I going to do?
Because otherwise we worry twice. We worry before and then we worry after it happens. So how I pray to God now is I normally say, please give me courage to accept whatever it is that you're trying to show me here. Because I'm in agonizing pain right now, because I am human. And usually when I remember to say it, and in fact, I train myself to always say it now, because mine goes straight from being happy to not wanting to be here from like a matter of minutes, So when I say that, it actually, like I said, give me the courage to feel the fear and do it anyway, or be with it anyway, sort of thing. Because everything good is on the other side of fear. Always. Fear is what really prevents us from enjoying life, being joyful. Fear is what made us addicts in the first place. So fear is the mental prison bars. And what recovery helps us to do is, with the connection of the higher power, break one bar at a time down. So we are finally free or close to free as much as we can.
Reco12 Spearheads, if our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Reco12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at reco12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Reco12 Spearhead.
Right. Or as you said, acceptance, right? Acceptance is the answer to all our prayer. Maybe that thing you're afraid of is real, Maybe
it's always
the
real.
person really is sick. Yeah. Maybe the person is sick. Maybe, I can make it better, but maybe it's really
But it's
hard.
making the separation. It's just making the separation, though. It's just that whoever it is, even if it's our son or even, whatever close the human relationship is, understanding their belonging is with the higher power. And no matter how real the situation is, it's the higher power's plan for them. And when we say we are being employed by the higher power, it's respecting our employer, more than respecting our human, so-called the attachment that we have. Because it's when we think we are in charge without even realizing, oh, my kid, because it's my kid, they shouldn't have this and these things happen to. That's when the fear comes, because we are not really accepting that the kid is not mine, even though for me it feels real. It's mine, but it's really not. It's more of higher powers than mine. My job is to
Right.
serve.
That reminds me of the line in the big book. Our job is to be of maximum service to others. That includes the people in our homes, My job is to be of maximum service to them, Sometimes it means waking the teenager up. Sometimes it means letting them fail and figure it out on their own and get responsible. Sometimes it means letting those around us hit a rock bottom, And sometimes we might get surprised. I had a sponsee whose husband used to make a mess around the house, and she would constantly be frenetically picking up after him, nagging him. And then she was like, when she did her prayer, she's like, I'm just surrendering. I'm going to let it go. And she just let the mess pile up. And it got kind of gross. And at some point is like, okay, will you help me clean this up? We do this together. And she's like, okay, sure. But, that was a surprise. If we're constantly doing for the other person, we're constantly enabling, we don't leave any room for surprise, for growth. I'm going to ask you a fun question, Nira. I've never asked this on here before, but I just kind of got inspired. We are not a glum lot.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we are not a glum lot. What's your favorite passage of the big book? What's your favorite line? I'm sure there are many, but whatever comes to your heart.
There are many. I'm not very good at actually quoting big book passages as such, but I will try my best.
Paraphrase.
Yeah. I would say, let the higher power in, to let go of things that we cannot do ourselves. Something along those lines. Like, let God in.
There's a line that says it a little bit more bluntly, God is everything or God is nothing. So it's like, right now, right before this, I paused. I'm taking a statistics exam online, and it's like, I'm more of a humanities person. And I'm like, me and statistics. I was like, God, but statistics. God, you're in charge of just open up my brain. Just give me the right answers. And you know what? I did have a little miracle. The instructions on paper said there were no notes allowed. But then when I opened up the test, it said you could use your notes. I was like, okay. See? Like, our big book says we're now on the broad highway. The broad highway, we're not controlling everything when we are no longer running the show. It gets broader. It gets most expansive. And then I could even say something like, all I need to do is to pass this prerequisite. I really only need to get what it is, a 70, a 75, a 80. Like, it's okay. It's okay. I'll do what I need to
And then
do.
also sometimes, God's plan as a human being seems very confusing. It's like, what are you doing? This is very confusing. But when we actually just let go of the steering wheel and really put faith and courage into it, you see when it unravels itself, there was a lot of sense in it. It's almost like, how dare were we to stand there and judge it in the first place? Because God always has the bigger plan, whether we like it or not. It's the resistance to accepting things is equals to the amount of pain we feel. Simple as that. And also failings, we learn a lot more by failing than succeeding. Failure should be cherished and celebrated as much as the successes. We don't remember how many successes or achievements we've had. I mean, my life is a proof of that. Any of the achievements I've achieved until the age of 24, I was miserable. I was lost. In fact, it was unlearning all of those things and actually failing miserably is what finally got me to true happiness, because it's the failures that really taught me who I was all about, how I was meant to live, what my purpose was, not the achievements, not the human achievements anyway. And God achievements always come through pain, and most of the time. And pain only because we are not accepting it. When we accept it, pain reduces.
I'm hearing a few passages from the big book there is, again, our dark past will be our greatest asset, right? Those fumbles, those failures will help us in the future. So if you're a sex and love addict, that divorce, that relationship where you smothered the other person, where you were doing things you shouldn't be doing, being with people you shouldn't be being, that might save the next person or help the next person.
Yes, and
the other thing.
Go on.
Sorry, though, I'm just say one more thing. The other thing I'm hearing in there is that we manufactured our own misery. I think it might be in the family afterwards that a lot of times that we step on the toes of our fellows and then we're shocked when they react or they're angry at us or they hurt us. And the misery is our own manufacture.
It is, and also it's the entitlement. Why do we ask God, please, can you not let this happen to me? Because another child of his, it is definitely happening to them. So what makes us think we are more entitled for certain pains not to come? Those are not the right questions to ask or prayers to be saying to higher power. It's more like, okay, you've chosen to give this situation to me for whatever reason that I don't understand, but I trust in you. It's a proof to show that you actually do have faith in the higher power, and when you do that, you feel lighter. You all of a sudden ready to face it rather than sitting there thinking, why is it happening to me? I hope it didn't happen to me. Any of those stories, you have the strength to deal with whatever there is at that moment. And then once you're on the other side, it becomes your strength and hope with every single situation. And without any of these things, how do we know we really have faith in the higher power or not as well? So every time I get a tricky, sticky situation, I always think, I know what you're doing. You're trying to see whether I will run to my human will or I will just say, take it. I tell my sponsees, treat high power as a bin where we put everything that we don't understand, that we don't, because the higher power can take it. All we have to do is the action that is required there and then. And we do it, and I'm not into blind faith because I am a very educated person, and I am here after doing a whole lot of things from a very scientific background as well. But the connection with God is not in sort of blind faith. It's actually, like I said, a connection like a loved one. All you have to do is ask the right questions, the right answers come. All you have to ask is the strength to acceptance, it comes. All you have to ask is for patience, and it comes. That's it. It's just we need to ask for the right things, then it comes. It's when we ask for the wrong things, we think, oh, where is God? Why don't I hear him? Why don't I get this? You know? But God sees, and it's right there. Just like that story of the Sistine Chapel, where Adam is so lazy to lift his finger, but God is reaching out all the time. All we have to do is just reach our finger, just lift it, just a little bit. And that lifting comes in the form of learning to ask the right things, like patience, courage. It's not about asking for a handsome husband. It's not about asking for my kid to do better. Why should my kid do better when there are so many other kids are not doing better? If my kid is not doing better, for me, how I see it is there is something in it. All my job is to serve, teach the kid right from wrong. But if the kid is still picking up the wrong, then how do I deal with it? I give it to the higher power. That person may become an addict and become strength and hope again later in life for somebody else. I don't know their journey. Just because they're my kid, they're going in that path and I'm in pain, I'm asking high power to remove it. But what about, say, if my mom prayed for me not to be an addict, I wouldn't be here saying this story today, And my poor mom, she knew everything about my addiction. I was dragging her through and saying, it's all your fault. You did this to me. And whereas now we're best friends and we talk about it, we're like, it's good this happened, isn't it? So we can talk about it as two women now sitting here, and how, if our son become an addict, how are we going to deal with it? Because he's just gone to secondary school. So of course we have, and we've never really had boys to bring up, so we don't know how they're going to turn up, so it's all a new thing. But higher power, when there's real faith, there's nothing that is impossible. God is everything or nothing.
Exactly. He was there all the time, right? The big book says that. There all the time, like the air. We just have to reach out or let him in. He was there the whole time.
All time. Loving us, being kind, patient, tolerant, everything. Everything. And we always turn our back. But yet, his service for us never ends. Like a tree, just giving, not expecting anything in return, not a single thing.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm going to kind of give a blessing to everyone on this line, everyone who's here on this recording, that we should emulate that model, like our big book says, to prevent resentment. Is we need to be giving, expecting nothing else in return. So just because I folded your laundry, you don't owe me anything. And just because I helped you at work, you don't owe me anything. And just because I, invited you to my party or went to your party doesn't mean you have to go to mine. That's how we want to be. We want to be earth angels, intelligent agent spearheads of God's everlasting creation. Nira, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I'm going to ask you.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to pray us out, and then we'll close up this meeting.
Sure. Lord, today help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery, for a new experience in my life, a new experience in my fellows, and my own recovery. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, everybody.